Hello and welcome to another video. So today we're taking a look at a Mechaverse deck. It's a fairly straightforward build as far as they go. It seems to be fairly popular at the moment and seems to be appearing on some tier lists, so I thought why not cover it. Obviously running a strong early game focusing around the Machina followers fairly easily, and then transitioning more to a standard mid to late game for most forest decks these days, only incorporating of course a couple of those cards to help support the archetype. But overall a really solid deck and does quite a nice job, so why don't we get into it and take a look. So starting off, our first game here is Forest versus Forest. Nothing too crazy about that. Forest seems to be appearing a lot on ladder over the last few days since I've been playing, so it definitely isn't a surprise that we're seeing more of it. I mean, people are going to be trying to expand workout counters and work through things, so not a huge shock. Wellspring Elf Princess, actually not a bad turn 2 play. It doesn't really have much utility other than being a good turn 4 play with an Evo, but as a standard 2 drop, it's actually not too bad. And it's so good even my opponent decided to play one, so definitely not the worst option. Obviously you want to watch out for your opponent playing too many Swarm cards, as well as, of course, we're running very similar builds. Pushing the Queen to get those low drop cards early on. Really just trying to take advantage of Storm, Bounce, and potentially anything else that you can get your hands on to win the games. So I decided to go all in on this. Expand our board out, use the Iron Bow Sniper to take out their follower. Just mess around with the Evo a little bit. That actually develops quite a nice board to work with for next turn. Pretty hard to remove, a nice sticky one. Taking full advantage of whatever we can get is usually the best way to go with this deck. So our opponent doing pretty well there. A nice solid follower to try and defeat us with. Unfortunately for them though, Iron Bow Sniper, great way to take that out. We can pretty much just go for exactly what we did last time and deal some damage while buffing our board up. Now another possible unkilling. So it looks like they're basically mirroring their last turn as we did. And now we have a pretty free turn, to be honest. So we have 7 damage on board currently. We can actually evolve this Cynthia, get some extra board, and annihilate the 5/5 very easily. I could have optimally went for obviously the Evo on the 1/3, took it that way, but it would have had to have left up the follower, and I really didn't want that. It would have healed them too much. At least with no Evo points and no way to do anything else, healing wasn't going to be enough, and ending their turn was the logical decision. Next game here is Forest versus Shadow. So Shadow can be tricky occasionally. While these aren't the top meta decks, these are decks that seem to be floating around a lot lately, mainly obviously to counter. So this deck actually doesn't do bad in pretty much every situation. I've had some very close games against Blood. Haven can be a lot trickier though if they get a really good lineup. If they have basically the ideal turn 4, turn 5 plays, or even just an insane kill play, it can really crush you. But Blood is very, very equal to this deck as far as just, you know, versing it goes. As far as actually being meta defining though, Blood is definitely a step ahead of everything, so that's kind of unavoidable. So Mecha Wing Angel, double assembly droid, getting that early board, very important for this deck. Not really a lot I can do against that though, so it's a little disappointing. The Justice is about all I can play out, and maybe throw of course the Amulet down, but not really optimal line of play for turn 4. I was hoping I could have got a bigger board. At least the Bane will pick off pretty much anything. And since we get to retain it for a turn or two, it's going to definitely do some work for us. So Queen of the Forest, getting those low drops again, as we always do. You always want those. It also sets up nicely to get some higher drops when it's destroyed as well, so not a bad trade-off for a card. Being a double tutor is definitely good. So next is Cerberus. Cerberus play, not a big surprise either. It's a little bit of a pain because we do have to take out the puppy dogs, and it's not going to be too much fun to do that. Okami's nice, but not very useful on its own right now. At least with this, we should be able to take it out with an Evo. And try and get as big a board as possible and divert as much ping damage as we can. I definitely should have evoed the 2-2 there though, instead of the 1-1. That was definitely the wrong move. I'd made a huge mistake there, as I could have then synergized with Okami next turn with a 0 drop and at least got something out of it. Although it looks like this will still pay off pretty well without much issue. Since they're probably only taking out 2 things anyway, so the Okami actually gets some value. It's just they could have definitely done that better. Now we can either take the full board wipe or deal 4 damage to face and leave up a 1-1. Both options actually seem to do pretty well in this situation. And not a big problem at all. Especially since we've got another Okami to follow up immediately. And it looks like they are going to focus on clearing out the smaller Okamis. Which really isn't a good option. If you leave up the Prime Okami, you're really letting Forest just run you over. Because if they have 2 Okamis in hand, they're pretty much set. Like, we can easily play this 1-drop, and Forest typically will have a 1-drop, and go for Okami again while getting maximum value out of it. So it's definitely not the spot you want to be in. And now all I really have to do is focus on going face. And since we've got Okami in hand again, along with 2 1-drops, we can actually go for a maximum value next turn as well if we want. There's the Underworld play, Deadly Dreamer, none of which are an issue. Didn't really matter which Okami they left up. Once we play another Okami, we do win the game anyway, so definitely worked in our favor. That is going to close out the Shadow game. So once you get this deck on a roll from early game to mid to late, it really does steamroll and keep piling up on your opponent, which can be very hard to deal with. Of course, if my opponent made a little bit better plays occasionally, dealing with Okamis, they would have had a better luck, although we still had a decent hand to set up for long term, so it probably wouldn't have been a big issue. As I mentioned, going up against Haven can be really tricky. Blood, I would say, is getting close to that 50-50 margin with this deck in particular, but still does favor Blood slightly. I would say it's maybe 48 to 52% with us being obviously at a disadvantage, but it's close enough that really this deck does fairly well. I found the games that I did lose against Blood were only lost by maybe at most a turn, maybe at most a couple of damage, making them very close. So if you guys did enjoy this video, hit the like button and subscribe. You'll find the deck list in the description below. Until next time, guys, see ya.